All right, well, let's get straight into it with political analyst Khanyi Magubane, who joins us live now to weigh in on the newly elected members of the Mayoral Committee for the City of Tshwane. Khanyi, always a pleasure having you with us. Good afternoon. So let's first start by acknowledging the fact that the newly elected Tshwane mayor is no stranger to the outgoing DA politics as a former member herself since 2011 until, of course, her untimely departure in 2021. The DA looking like it's seemingly taking a hit here from their former allies.
In fact, even Action SA's Herman Mashaba himself, of course, we know is a former member of the Democratic Alliance. And what we are seeing are changing politic dynamics in the city of Tshwane. And if we are to analyze the situation politically, what's happening in the city of Tshwane is actually an indication that what we previously had thought would happen, and these are the permeation or the mutations of the GNU into lower levels of government. So talking about a government of national unity, of provincial unity, and of local unity across the three spheres of government. That is largely what we thought was going to happen. However, Gauteng is proving that this is not the case. You know, they are wielding their power, certainly the ANC in Gauteng. They've put forward Nasiphi Moya, and she's no stranger to politics in general. She was the deputy mayor, but she signals a new dawn in politics as such, not just in the city of Tshwane. This is the first time we're seeing a province actually demanding greater autonomy, you know, from national to make its own decisions that don't even necessarily reflect those that are at a national level. And I think that the amalgamation or the coalition between the EFF, Action SA, and the ANC, of course, highly criticized by the DA. But if you listen to what party leaders from all three parties are saying they are turning the tide around. They are turning the notion of Black dysfunctional leadership around, but only time can tell, because it was just a year ago Cilliers Brink was elected as a mayor after several to elect a mayor. You'll remember those days before Cilliers was elected, that there were many non-starter attempts. So let's see what happens.
Speaking of GNU, Khanyi, now, like today's election of members of the Mayoral Committee, which is what our focus is about, essentially, what is your take on the appointed teams? I mean, there was much speculation as to who exactly within this new alliance in Tshwane will then get which posts as a result, of course, of this deal, which is outside of the GNU. So you've heard the names there, albeit we took it pretty late, but I understand it looks like it went pretty much 50-50 between the ANC as well as as Action SA, not much around the EFF side.
I mean, we just caught the tail end of that announcement, but I did hear some EFF announcements and Action SA. So, you know, no name particularly standing out at this stage, but what out for me is the mayor's comments that this is the diverse mayoral committee that we promised you. This is the diverse and culturally attuned and sensitive mayoral committee that we promised you, because of course we know that the biggest criticism of the Brink administration in the city of Tshwane has been what they've described as a slanted advantage towards suburban areas and affluent areas receiving the best services of the city, and many of Pretoria's townships and outlying areas really suffering to get the attention of the city. And also what I think is interesting is the mayor saying that not only are they a diverse group, the mayoral committee, but they're also committed to fighting out corruption. She was saying just to your colleague the other day that all the current corruption cases that are there, especially around Haman's water campaign, that all of those will not be simply swept under the carpet. She's committed herself to continue working in the ethos of Action SA, which has been to root out corruption at every level. How that will sit with their coalition partners, I don't think they'll sit too well, and sold out to the cause of turning the city of Tshwane around.
So, Khanyi, now for the city of Tshwane to get back on track in terms of the many challenges that have been highlighted by yourself as well as residents, more importantly, especially that thorny issue of selective service delivery. How important is it then for this relationship and team to work? I mean, we've heard of the allegations of selective tender processes that seem to favor certain people using their power for self-enrichment and gain, even if it's outside of the GNU. As we speak about, of course, the Brink administration and corruption, we understand that the city is actually literally on the verge of bankruptcy as well.
I can believe that. I can believe that because that has been one of the biggest indictments towards the local level of government, that it's easier to steal at the bottom than it is to steal at the top. Because we must remember that South Africa is a multi-sphere government, from national, provincial to local. And in political terms, that institutional arrangement is called decentralization. And when we decentralize, we are devolving power from the center. We are devolving power, resources, and authority to lower levels of government. But that also comes with billions of rands that are devolved to lower levels of government. The city of Tshwane controls billions of rands, and not just in revenue, but in equitable share that they receive from government. And so for any political party going into power, or for any people that are close to those resources, if they are not ethical, if they are not moral, as we've seen in the past, it is easy, low-hanging fruit. You know, how many administrations have been placed under administration for not getting a clean audit because of things like you've mentioned, irregular tenders that have been issued? So what we need to do is actually start getting those supply chain movements, the PFMA, all of those acts are there. But effectively, are they being implemented? The Municipal Act is there, but how effectively is it implemented? I think that is what we continue to have a problem with at local government.
Khanyi, back to your very interesting point of, what this relationship or alliance, should we call it, in Tshwane, as well as Gauteng, actually means overall for the major partners within the GNU, which is basically the ANC as well as the DA. How do you see that relationship going forward? We saw the political mudslinging that you pointed out as well when we began the interview. And also maybe, I'm sure you also saw the reaction on the day of the mayor's election there, Freedom Front Plus, really changing their tune and saying that they no longer trust her because, as they said it, she betrayed them. So Action SA and the ANC and the EFF very proud of this decision.
Very proud indeed. And you know that there are very interesting dynamics that I think are starting to play out. If you remember, Helen Zille released a statement demanding the reinstatement of Cilliers Brink, and within that letter, she writes that the ANC actually needs to whip GP into place because they've gone rogue, and they've become a law unto themselves, and the ANC needs to continue asserting its authority. And I thought to myself that, if within the GNU a day where the DA would walk away. I think from a political point of view, the best way to frustrate them would be at a lower level. The DA's reaction to the removal of Cilliers Brink is anything by. We know that they were probably 5 footsteps away from getting out of the GNU. And it makes sense that at a lower level of government, that is really where they can frustrate the DA, because we know that if the Action SA and the EFF go into the GNU, the ANC will no longer need the Democratic Alliance. And so we know that the ANC has made it very clear to the Democratic Alliance that within the GNU, they are not just there to take orders from Helen Zille and the Democratic Alliance. And that if she does want to walk away, they do have other options of other GNU partners. And I think Helen Zille is aware of this. And unfortunately, the more she plays hard that ball, the more she wakes or she awakens the militancy of the ANC, because the ANC remains a military organization. And what has happened in the city of Tshwane, it was a very militant move to kick Cilliers Brink out, knowing how it would affect relations at the top. But still, they went ahead and they took that risk. And it's a sign of things to come if my predictions are anything to go by.
Khanyi, thank you so much. It's always great having a chat with you. That is political analyst there, Khanyi Magubane. And of course, the City of Tshwane electing its council members just a short while ago.